is the first thing that you think of when I say the word weaving. You may think of woven cloth that's used to make our clothes or baskets, but I think of something much more ancient. I think of ancient people creating functional pieces like baskets and mats, as well as beautiful works of art like rugs and clothing. Weaving is one of the oldest surviving crafts in the world. The local native Salish tribe is actually known for being skillful weavers, and they use their blankets for ceremonial purposes as well as identifying an individual's role in the community. So today I'm first going to talk about what weaving is, and second, why it's important. Weaving is often overlooked but is an ancient technological innovation. So let me start with what weaving is and how it's done. Weaving is the process of interlacing materials to create a grid-like pattern that creates a fabric or material. I have an example here of a loom, and you can see that there's yarn that goes up and down. This is called the warp, and then what's woven into it is going horizontally, and that's called the weft. So that creates kind of a grid-like pattern. And then I have another example here of a basket that shows the same kind of warp going up and down, and then what's woven into it is called the weft. It also creates a grid-like pattern. Weaving is considered to be a technological innovation that can be traced back to over 20,000 years ago. Our ancient ancestors started using this technique to create different kinds of textiles. They used plant materials like flax to make different kinds of fabrics like linen, blankets, and rugs. And then they used bark or grass to make things like baskets or mats. The invention of the loom actually allowed for them to produce finer fabrics out of things like flax and wool, so they could make linen or silk. Different configurations of the loom can create different textures or patterns. In the American Journal of Archaeology, Richard Ellis, a professor of classical and Near Eastern archaeology at Bryn Mawr College, talked about tracing types of looms and textiles throughout history in order to date how long people have been using them. Because looms and textiles are made out of perishable materials, they were often lost to the elements. But they have been able to find some pieces and date them back to over 4,000 years ago. There are different types of looms. There's small looms, there's large looms, but the size of your loom is going to determine the size of your finished piece. Fred Kleiner, who's a professor of art and architecture history and archaeology at Boston University, wrote a book called Art Through the Ages that's used in art history classes. He wrote that in ancient Incan culture, they actually made beautiful decorative textiles, and they regarded them to be more valuable than gold. When the Spanish came to South America, they actually burned their textiles to keep them out of the hands of the Spanish soldiers. So I went over what weaving is. Now let's talk about why it's important. Dr. Irene Good, who's an archaeologist of Central and West Asia at the Peabody Museum at Harvard, said that woven materials address 3 of our 5 basic needs. They can be used to make clothing, which would keep us warm and protect us from the elements. You can actually use textiles to create shelter. So if you will refer to photo number 1, that is a photo of a wigwam that's built by the Ojibwe people. They would use a frame of wood, and then they would cover that frame with grass mats that have been woven, and then on top of that they would put another layer of bark for insulation. And what's really cool about that photo is that you can actually see a woman sitting in front of the wigwam weaving a grass mat. So the third basic need that weaving can address is food, because you can use baskets to collect different kinds of foods like berries and roots and shellfish. And you can also use them to trap animals or fish. So if you look at photo number 2, there is a picture of different kinds of baskets that were woven by the Tlingit tribe. and these could be used for gathering or storage. So today I talked about weaving. I hope that you have a new understanding of what it is and why it's important. Weaving is the use of materials like plant fibers or animal fibers to create different textiles like fabrics and baskets. The size of your loom is going to determine the size of your finished piece. Weaving is an ancient art form that can be traced back thousands of years, and it's important because it addresses 3 of our 5 basic needs. So weaving is often overlooked, but it's actually a technological innovation. And my hope is that you've learned more about where our woven clothing may have originated from and have an understanding about why weaving is important and was important to our ancestors and is still relevant today.